Greetings, welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing climate change, abrupt climate change, and things adjacent. And I wanted to bring you an article that I've been trying to read for a long time. And just to let you know, once I say this pretty frequently, and I say it, probably every week or every couple of weeks, but I am absolutely inundated by articles and videos and people send, and that's great. I want you to all continue to send me things. But on every single video, there are 5 articles and 10 videos, that people send me, and I can't even watch them all. I can't get to them all, but I appreciate you all sending the videos and the articles. But I really have to kind of pick and choose. Because I have a limited time to actually put my eyeballs on everything, and I have a limited time to read and watch everything, and I have a limited time to speak on all of these things when I finally do get a chance to. By the way, special mention, the Lee Camp article that I read a couple days ago, which was amazing, was sent to me by Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. And I forgot. I keep forgetting because I cannot remember anything, and my brain is like a sieve. But Jeff and Sandy sent me the Earth banner behind me. I gave a shout out and I asked who sent me the banner. This was when I got this a couple weeks ago. But anyways, I'm enjoying this banner. I think everybody else is enjoying this banner. So thank you, Jeff and Sandy, for sending this banner. The Earth, the globe, the globe halo on my head is pretty cool and really rounds out my studio. I like it. Thank you so much. But anyways, I want to get to this article that I've been trying to read for a long, long time. This is from June 13th. That's how long. Whole 15 days or whatever it is. Will climate change kill everyone or just lots and lots of people? This is from Vox. The debate over whether climate change will end life on Earth explained. Explain. Is climate change going to end human civilization for good, or so soon that we may as well not bother saving for retirement? That's the theory put forward in a recent viral Vice post. New report warns high likelihood of human civilization coming to an end within 30 years. The Vice story summed up a new report from the Breakthrough National Center for Climate Restoration, an Australian think tank arguing that the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change analysis of the impacts of climate change understates how much harm it will do, and that in reality we face something much worse, with runaway feedback effects amplifying the initial warming until the Earth is largely uninhabitable. No reference to Dr. Guy McPherson in this yet. It doesn't actually argue that the world will end in 30 years, but it suggests we'll reach the tipping point by then. Oh, you don't say. Tell me more. The story went up on Vice with an orange-tinged, haunting illustration of the Statue of Liberty submerged to the neck by rising seas. The post was shared more than 70,000 times on Facebook and left readers terrified, despairing, and sharing doubts about whether it's ethical to have children. The Breakthrough report and the media coverage of it frustrated many climate scientists. In a detailed response, 6 researchers argued that the report overstates the risk from climate change and that subsequent reporting overstated it even further. The fact is that even the most pessimistic reports evaluated responsibly don't suggest climate change will end human civilization, much less within our lifetimes. Oh, really? Don't stop saving for retirement. Vice later altered the headline to "New report warns high likelihood of human civilization coming to an end starting within 30 years," and even published a rebuttal. Oh, don't want to scare the children, and by children, I mean adults. But the Vice piece tapped into what's actually been long-running and sometimes a long-running but sometimes contentious conversation about the climate crisis, specifically about whether it's merely just devastating or, in fact, an existential risk to humanity. Oh, joy. And it resonated with people in part because most mainstream research into climate change has focused, prompted by the IPCC, on scenarios with around 2 degrees of warming, less often on fairly likely scenarios with 3 or 4 degrees of warming, and infrequently on worst-case scenarios of climate disaster, leaving a lot of questions about those worst-case scenarios unanswered. How likely are they? How catastrophic would they be? Scientists don't all agree, and that uncertainty creates room for the most shocking stories to go viral. Oh, we're uncertain. We don't know. We're not sure. Probably one of the most dangerous devices in use today. Some scientists are uncertain. We don't have all the facts. We don't know. So therefore, we can't, no need to take any action or be worried at all on any level. Carry on destroying the planet, hand over fist, as we've been doing for the last century. Beneath the disagreement over climate risks is a disagreement over worldviews. From one perspective, quibbling over whether climate change will kill millions or billions is a silly waste of time when, in either case, we urgently need to act. But from another perspective, the difference is deeply significant. For example, it changes whether potential solutions that carry significant risks, like some forms of solar geoengineering, are warranted. Okay, that paragraph actually contained, some solid logic. Another broad disagreement is whether alarmism makes our prospects of tackling climate change better or worse. As some people see it, we're not doing nearly enough to fight climate change, so we better focus in on the worst-case scenarios in case that will be what it takes to finally spur people to action. Others, though, worry that alarmism, far from motivating people, leads to paralysis. Too much despair about the future to even bother working on it. So yes, the Vice story did hype up the threat from climate crisis, and it likely won't be the last of those stories. We'll see. Those fear-mongering, crazy lunatics, the argument that climate change will kill us all. The expected effects of climate change, according to organizations like the IPCC and the World Bank, are fairly terrifying. They suggest the planet's climate will change fast enough to cause widespread droughts and famines, the spread of insect-borne diseases, the displacement of populations, and a worsening of severe poverty. But here's one thing they didn't predict: mass civilizational collapse. Most models warn that as a result of climate change, the incredibly rapid progress humanity has been making in life expectancies and in ending extreme poverty will stall. We could even lose decades of the progress we've made if extreme poverty gets as bad as it was in 1980. Due to climate change, that will be an immeasurable humanitarian failure, and hundreds of millions of people will die. But the 1980s definitely did have their human civilization, and the future in this version would too. I have some weird thoughts on humanitarianism, but that I've been clanging around in the old tinker. Another way of looking at it is that the predicted effects of climate change are very bad, but not in a cinematic way. Sea levels will rise, but not up to the Statue of Liberty's neck. How? No way. If all of the ice in the world melted, sea levels would rise to approximately the statue's waist. That's fine. That's totally fine. Idiots. Lots of people will die, most of them low income. It's not surprising that this gets less viral attention than extreme extinction-focused scenarios. Oh my God, this is a good bit of horseshit, this article. But anyways, that isn't to say extreme scenarios are made up from nothing. So it's like, guys, there's nothing to worry about. But it could be that we all die. But there's nothing to worry about. There's nothing to worry about. I mean, like, it's fine. Everything's fine. But, could be that we're in big, big trouble. But not for a little while, so it was fine. It's fine. We guys, don't worry about it, guys. We're fine. Anyways. Blah. Well, for one thing, lots of climate policy analysts agree that the IPCC is too optimistic. In particular, the IPCC has kept insisting that it's still possible to keep warming under 2 degrees Celsius when at this point that's really unrealistic. As my colleague David Roberts puts it, models have often included unrealistically low estimates of current and future emissions growth, unrealistically early peaks in global emissions, and unequitable estimates of emission curves in developing countries, implicitly assuming stunted development. Models routinely show 4 or even 6% annual reductions. a rate of emissions decline that has never been achieved by anyone, anywhere, ever, much less consistently over 50 years. So it's not surprising that some people get interested in more pessimistic models. What if we assume that we don't get our emissions under control? What if we assume that there are severe feedback cycles where warming causes the release of carbon dioxide currently contained in the land and in oceans, fueling further warming? You mean like the melting permafrost that's melting right now? You know, the permafrost that was supposed to melt in 2090? And what if instead of trying to model the most likely outcome, we look at outcomes that may only have a 10% chance of occurring, but would be particularly disastrous if they did? You mean like the melting permafrost that's melting right now? That was supposed to melt in 2100? The breakthrough report, authored by former fossil fuel executive, you don't say, Ian Dunlop, and author David Spratt, for the most part summarizes cases for pessimism that have been raised in other papers and public statements. It says, for example, attention has been given to a hothouse Earth scenario in which system feedbacks and their mutual interaction could drive the Earth system climate to a point of no return, whereby further warming would become self-sustaining. Spoiler alert. It's already there. This hothouse Earth planetary threshold could exist at a temperature rise as low as 2°C, possibly even lower. Right. So if we're almost at 2, we're essentially almost at 2. Our argument is, in essence, that on the present path, including the commitments in Paris, warming will be 3 or 3 and a bit degrees. Spratt told me 3 and a bit. 3 or 3 plus 8 degrees of C warming. If you include climate cycle feedbacks, which are not included in the IPCC analysis, it will be effectively higher. For both those claims, there's significant published science backing him. Then he gets to the controversial bit. 3 degrees may end our civilization. And may equals will. For that claim, he cites climate scientist John Schellnhuber, who said in an interview early this year, if we get it wrong, do the wrong things, then I think there is a very big risk that we will just end our civilization. And UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who has said the problem is that the status quo is a suicide. It's hard to know how to interpret remarks like those in an interview. How do we interpret those remarks? I mean, do we listen to them or do we just ignore them? How do we interpret them? Oh, they're just kidding. Those guys are a bunch of jokers. But Spratt's take is that the end of human civilization is not just a possibility, but a likely outcome if we continue down our current path. Many people had no trouble believing it because they have minds and ears. Scientists objected. Here's what they said. 6 climate scientists reviewed the accuracy of the report and Vice's write-up at Climate Feedback, a nonprofit that works to improve climate reporting by getting comments from scientists on striking claims in the press. Their responses were scathing. Climate Feedback. I wonder who funds Climate Feedback. That nonprofit. I wonder who's behind Climate Feedback. I would be very interested. This is a classic case of a media article overstating the conclusions and significance of a non-peer-reviewed report that itself has already been overstated and indeed misrepresented. Peer-reviewed science, wrote Richard Betts, who chairs the Department for Climate Impact Research at the University of Exeter and leads to the European Union project that studies the impacts of extreme global warming. The breakthrough report does indeed gather claims from other papers, climate leaders, and thinkers. So this is all from peer-reviewed journals and climate leaders and thinkers, but it selected many of the scariest and most speculative papers and presented them without being clear about how plausible they are. Okay. And some of its most outrageous claims are just wrong. They're just wrong. Why? Because they're just wrong. The report argues that if temperatures continue to rise, 55% of the global population are subject to more than 20 days a year of lethal heat conditions beyond which humans can survive. That'd be terrifying. Excuse me, but Betts points out that this is based on the definition of a deadly heat wave from a paper that defined a deadly heat wave as one above a threshold where at least one person is expected to die based on historical data, and some of the temperatures identified as deadly are as low as 86 degrees Fahrenheit, 30 degrees Celsius, with high humidity. Hot, but not what comes to mind from the phrase lethal heat conditions beyond what humans can survive. excuse me. The report's authors have merely read or possibly seen without actually reading a few of the scariest papers they could find, misunderstood or not read properly, at least one of them, and presented unjustified statements, Betts added. The scenario constructed in this report does not have a high likelihood of occurring, wrote Andrew King, a research fellow at the University of Melbourne. Spratt says that it doesn't need to be likely to be an important focus. Sensible risk management is to look at what are the worst feasible options and take actions to stop them from occurring. Exactly. He told me in risk management, we ask what is the worst possible outcome and avoid it. We don't assume that middle of the road outcomes are the worst thing around because that'd be disastrous, right? That said, he agreed that much of the media coverage, including the viral Vice article, was over the top and often misleading. But the scientists who reviewed the article didn't just object to the headlines. They felt that the core claim that 3 or 4 degrees of warming could destroy civilization was also deeply unlikely. While there's plenty of scientific evidence, I don't know if I can read much more of this, you guys. This is just, they're just, that's all I'm going to read. I'll link it below. I just can't do it anymore. They're just saying like, oh, it's really, really, well, come on, it's not that bad. It's not really helpful, actually. The articles like this are not helpful. And they all are based on the premise that if you scare people too much, that they might be so scared that they don't do anything. But in the meantime, they're not doing anything. Because if you make them feel like everything's okay, or if you put a president in office who's like, climate change, and they're like, yeah, the president, they got it. They're going to do something. Meanwhile, you just go ahead and go eat your Big Macs and get buy your SUV and, go to yoga and do, whatever you do and, go on those vacations and, everything is the same. You live, business as usual continues to go on. No drastic major changes are happening. And that's what this article is preventing from happening because it's not that bad. So just want to break that down for you that this article was pretty much bullshit. But I'll link it below if you all want to read it. That's all I have for you in this video. That's all the time I have in this video. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so at the links below. Until next time, peace.